familiar with this idea of talents, but actually every child is a talented child. And from their perspective, they want to realise their full potential. And we need, as an education system, to support them in doing that.
I'm originally trained as an experimental child psychologist, but then I became interested in neuroscience and also in acoustic speech processing, because I was working with children with language problems, and logically, if they can't hear speech properly, then they'll have trouble producing speech properly. And so I made myself, skilled up in how to measure how the brain is processing speech, processes speech rhythm patterns, and what kind of brain mechanisms might go wrong when the brain isn't getting rhythm patterns very well. Well, human speech is actually the most complex sound that the brain gets to analyse. And sound travels through the air as a pressure wave and then reaches your ear. So a good analogy is to think about the sea and the waves coming into the shore. So they're coming into the ear, and you can see very big waves that maybe a surfer would like to surf. But at the same time, there are lots of little waves in the sea. It's a constantly moving wavescape sort of thing. And the brain needs to analyse every single wave, not just the big ones. And the brain does it by electrical signalling. A good example would be if you think of fireflies in a forest. They're all sending little electrical pulses, but they're doing it totally randomly. If someone in that forest started banging a drum, for example, and the fireflies tried to synchronise their firing to that drum, then you would get a brain rhythm in effect. So the wonderful thing about the Yidan Prize is that I can now extend this rhythm-based approach in the research to children who have developmental language disorder. So we estimate that about 7% of children in the world are affected. That's 15 million children. And when you have an oral language disorder, it's already obvious when you're little. You're not acquiring your language milestones at the correct rate. That means you're getting to school without enough language to really use the curriculum and benefit. You're being taught literacy skills before your linguistic skills are ready. And by having a brain imaging project for those kind of children as well, we'll be able to compare the dyslexic brain with the brain of a child with developmental language disorder.
So, we're going to measure around your head, see how big it is, and then we'll get a cap that fits you properly. So, we're going to go through to the other room when this is ready. I'll pop the cap on your head, and then we play a game where we'll listen to a lady's head talking on the screen, and she'll be saying ba, ba, and we have to spot the odd one out.
Yeah.
Yeah? And then we're all done, and then we'll come back in and take the cap off. And that's all we have to do.
Okay.
So we do several types of brain scanning, and mostly EEG. EEG stands for electroencephalography, and in basic terms, it just basically detects differences in electricity in your brain. The main potential of EEG in developmental language disorder and other language disorders is that given its high temporal resolution, it's able to pick up on different brain patterns that are very transient, that happen very, very fast, and that can basically pinpoint how these patterns are different from people who do not have developmental language disorder, and allow us to know more about the neural underpinnings of developmental language disorders.
So we know quite a lot about the dyslexic brain now and how it responds to spoken language. And we know that one of the signalling networks that actually goes at quite a slow rate, roughly twice a second, which is the rate across languages at which speakers produce strong or stressed syllables, like daddy, mummy, baby, the heavy syllables. That brain rhythm doesn't seem to lock on to the beat in time in developmental dyslexia. And that's very important because it's like the governing oscillator or the governing rhythm for all the other rhythms. It's like a kind of cascade in the brain that all the different rhythms and their different speeds are related. And so in the dyslexic brain, that very most important speed seems to be slightly off. And so it has downstream effects all through the cascade. So for the child with DLD, we're trying to measure these same brain rhythms just when they're listening to language, listening to stories usually, and see whether maybe different speeds of brain response are affected. At the moment, the data suggest that it's slightly faster rhythms that don't couple correctly for the DLD brain, but we do need more data.
So let's clap together, jelly. How would we clap jelly?
Jelly.
Jelly, fantastic. So how many beats are there in jelly?
2.
2, brilliant. In English, words have a very characteristic stress pattern. We have strong beats, we have weak beats. So for example, we can say banana with the stress on the middle syllable, but we can't really say banana with the stress on the first syllable. And so we get them to listen to words like this. Can they hear that those words sound different? And also, do they know what it should be? So have they learned that it should be banana? Have they absorbed that stress pattern as part of their knowledge about that word? And so these are the kind of things we're interested in finding out how that fits into part of their language system.
There were all kinds of pets. Where do you think the big beats are for this one? I'll give you a hint. There are two in this line.
Those?
Really?
No.
Try to listen to where the long ones are. There were all kinds of pets.
Pets?
Very good. Pets is one. And where is the other one?
What we all really want is to be able to make a difference for these children, to improve their ability to access learning so that they're able to make the most of themselves.
So the other holy grail, as well as effective intervention, is early identification. And with all the advances in AI and in deep learning, you can now take complex data sets like our brain imaging data and apply these tools and try and build classifiers to find out who is and isn't at risk. So what the Yidan Prize would enable me to do is have matching brain data from children with developmental language disorder to try to build a classifier to distinguish developmental language disorder from control children who might be late talkers but actually have nothing wrong with their language system. And even more exciting, to match that to our dyslexia data, because we'll be using a new type of brain imaging that we've just started using in dyslexia. We'll have very rich data from both dyslexic brains and brains of children with developmental language disorder, and we should be able to create a classifier that can distinguish the two. And that would be really groundbreaking, because at the moment we have no early diagnostic tools for either disorder, for dyslexia nor for developmental language disorder.
We're taking part in this research because Jake suffers from DLD, which is developmental language disorder. We've come across Professor Goswami's article, and there was lots of really interesting comments and that really resonated with me. So that was something thought we'd like to take part in.
It made me feel important.
So I think if the research actually establishes and identifies children with dyslexia and DLD right at the start, and then interventions can be used, I think that will be a complete game changer for young children really, and it will improve their lives and improve their school life as well.
We're having various therapies because you can help children at so many different levels. So probably the most exciting in terms of research is the brain-computer interface that we've been piloting so far just with adults. But there's a spaceship and you're watching it on the screen and you're just listening to somebody telling a story again. And if you are able to optimize those brain synchronies, then the spaceship starts going up. So the idea is that if we get the system right, children could learn to automatically change the way their brain synchronizes with speech. They'll never know how they're doing it, but once it becomes habitual, because these are all automatic processes, then in theory that should have knock-on effects for their language, which we can measure. But for the more day-to-day classroom-based activities, I think what we're showing is that anything that links speech rhythm to the syllable structure of speech is really helpful. They don't seem to hear these rhythm patterns in the speech signal very clearly. So anything you can do to make them very explicit, really get the child aware, maybe motor rhythm as well, like tapping on the hand or on the desk, all of that should help children with DLD.